Good evening. I'm Dee Perry, and on behalf of the East Cleveland Public Library and the Anansi Artists Alliance, I want to welcome you to this very special event, Miles Davis, the Man and His Music. Yeah. Now, I've got to say, I am doubly pleased to be here because I host and produce arts and culture programming on radio and TV and web for 90.3 FM and WVIZ PBS Idea Stream. But I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't heard Miles Davis back when I was in college. I was at Cleveland State University, and I took a course called Jazz Survey taught by the late jazz champion Chris Columbia. And one of our exercises for that class was to find a copy of Miles Davis's classic 1959 album, Kinda Blue, and listen to it as deeply as we could. And up to that point, Motown was my main music source, and I didn't really feel like jazz spoke to me. I just took the course because I thought it would be an easy 3 credits. And instead, it ended up changing my life. When I dropped the needle on that first track from Kinda Blue, the song So What came up. And I suddenly understood what Mr. Columbia had been talking about, the call and response between bassist Paul Chambers and pianist Bill Evans, and then Chambers and the horns. And I heard the blues in that composition and felt the cool and urgent swing in the rhythm, and I fell in love with the sound of Miles's trumpet. That one album was enough to turn me into a jazz fanatic, and that passion, plus volunteering to do station announcements for the campus radio station WCSB, put me in the right place at the right time when a part-time job as a jazz host came up on WABQ. I got that job and had the great privilege of programming as much Miles Davis music as possible at every station I got the chance to work at. And that brings me to tonight. I'm here because even after several decades of listening, I still discover something fresh every time I listen to Miles Davis music. So I am so pleased to be part of a program that celebrates that music and also encourages the support of the arts in East Cleveland. Later this evening, our special guest, Mr. Quincy Troupe, will share some much more colorful tales of his encounters with Miles Davis, and you'll hear trumpeter Kenny Davis and his quartet interpret the music of Miles. I want to begin, though, by welcoming to the podium the director for the East Cleveland Public Library, Sheba Marcus Bay. Sheba?
Good evening, everyone. Of course, I'm Sheba Marcus Bay, and I'm the executive director of the East Cleveland Public Library, and I'm proud to sit at the helm of an institution that has successfully delivered 100 years of services to the citizens and the public of East Cleveland. Let's give this institution a round of applause. Tonight, we are poised to explore the legacy of Miles Davis through a conversation between Mr. Troupe, or listening through his poems and the dialogue he's going to have with Dee Perry. As you all know, Dee Perry is a celebrity in her own right. Is that right? Yes? All right. So we're really happy that she's here with us. She's a well-known broadcast journalist, and we got her some roses here. Oh, yeah. So we know what the color pink is for, right? What's the color pink for? Thank you, thank you. So we're on our etiquette, so we're really happy she's here with us tonight. So as you all might know, she is the host of Around Noon on WCPN and The Sound of Applause on WVIZ Channel 25. And we're so happy that she's gonna lead us in this evening's events as we go through a wonderful trip through time and to be exposed to just narrative poetry and jazz. With this programming tonight, we're really confident that we're going to be able to dig deep and really walk away with an understanding of Miles Davis and who he is or what he was. We were talking in the back, and I noted that Mr. Troupe still spoke of him in the present tense. And I think that's amazing. And he answered, I said, why are you doing that? Why are you speaking of him in the present tense? He said, because his music is still with us. So I guess we're having a reunion back there. But it's all good. Welcome home, people. All right. So I think tonight we'll be able to come to terms with the complexities of Miles Davis. Of course, tonight our program is Miles Davis, the Man and His Music. It's a collaborative fundraising event dedicated to promoting cultural arts in East Cleveland. Our partners for this evening are Anansi Artists Alliance, the Friends of the East Cleveland Public Library, a cultural exchange, Mr. Bill Capp, and of course you, because you bought a ticket, so thank you. Let's give everyone a round of applause. I want to thank Mr. Seifela. Where are you at, Mr. Seifela? He's right here. I want to thank Mr. Seifela and the Alliance, the Artists Alliance, for approaching me to do this wonderful collaboration. It's a big deal. And Mr. Seifela and Miss Bonnie Venable, where are you at, Miss Venable? She's on the stage. All right, we'll hear from her in a moment. But I just want to say it's a really big deal because what these pioneering people are doing is bringing our rich legacy back to the forefront, and that's really important for the community of East Cleveland. I want to thank Mr. Billingsley, where are you at? And Miss Sheila. Where's Miss Sheila at? I guess she's out there. She's in the back. Our friends, president. They really did a great job of helping us push the ticket sales and do some marketing. And I want to really thank my staff for coming together and making this building look really, really well. As you can see, this is a real legacy. And I also want to thank Debbie McCam with the Culture Exchange. They're going to have books out available for purchase after the end of our program. But I really want to thank her for coordinating a visit with Mr. Troupe to the Shaw High School, because our students, our young people, they're our future, and they need to know about what they have to do. They have to be creative, and they've got to, pick up the legacy and keep it moving. So after our program tonight, do not forget, get some tickets. No, get some books, excuse me. Get them signed and put them in your own personal collection. I also want to acknowledge members of our board. Are there any board members in the room? I think I saw some. We have Leontine Sinor. We do also have a past board member in the room. I saw Miss Freeman, Miss Norma Jean Freeman. Let's give them a round of applause. Anybody who here is a city official, we want to acknowledge you as well. Are there any city officials? All right, we'll keep it moving. And also, I want to acknowledge we have a very special guest in this room whose name is on the wall, Mr. Greg L. Reese. Where are you, Mr. Reese? We're really happy that he made it out to give us an inspection. But this is a lovely resource, this Performing Arts Center. And he said what I have written down on the page. This Performing Arts Center is a jewel. And as you know, back in 2005, he got out there, he beat the streets and made connections with all types of wonderful donors to allow us in having this wonderful center that we're standing in now. So now for us all being able to enjoy this evening, I want you all to take the time to power down your cell phones. All right, either put them on mute or put them on vibrate. The public restrooms are outside on the left and the right of the donor wall. And again, after we have this wonderful conversation and dialogue and exposure to poetry, we're going to have jazz with Kenny Davis and his quartet. Let's give them a big up. And also, do not forget, buy books. How many times did I say that tonight? 3? I'll say it a 4th time. Buy books. All right. So also, we're going to have a reception that will follow, and we want to also thank our artists who came out to display their artwork. But anyway, I talked a little bit about what I heard today from Mr. Davis, from Mr. Troupe about Mr. Davis, and I do want to just let you all know that when he came in with his wonderful wife, Margaret Troupe, and she's right here. I think both of them are very phenomenal people, and I think they're equally yoked because they both have a real passion for culture and the arts. But when we met yesterday, I really found out firsthand how dynamic Mr. Troupe is and how knowledgeable he is. I learned that his books are translated in over a dozen languages, and that's a big deal when you think about a brother from the hood who gets his book out there and people all over the world want to read it. So I learned that he was a writers in residence for the Cleveland Public Library when they first started the program with Mr. Seifla. I thought that was very dynamic. And I also learned that he facilitated the writers in residence workshop series for adults and young adults as well. So that was a big deal. Some of the grown-ups that came out of that experience were Joan Southgate. You all know Joan Southgate, right? That lady is a dynamic woman. So she was in one of his workshops. Adam Banks, he's a childhood friend of mine, but he's a professor at the University of Kentucky. Those two kinds of people and the influence and the impact that Mr. Troupe has brought to the table really got me to thinking that this is a very powerful, powerful person. And also, I learned that he was the last person to interview James Baldwin. That's amazing. Did you know that? All right, so we're going to learn so much tonight. And I'm really excited that the program that you're holding in your hand, everybody got their program. He's going to take them with him. He asked for 3 copies, and he's going to take them up to New York City because it's going to go into the Schomburg, and that's very powerful. So we couldn't ask for a more wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be a part of history. So thank you, everyone, and let's have fun.
Thank you, Sheba. Well done. Up next, we're joined by the president of the Anansi Artists Alliance, Bonnie Venable.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for coming. We are the Anansi Artists Alliance. This is the second of a series of 4 jazz events that we're putting on. The Anansi Artists Alliance, our motto is making art work for community and for community and social development, or in other words, making artwork for community and social development. Our goals are to act as an advocate for our community artists by providing exposure, ways and means for them to get their work out there, for us to be seen, whether it's performing or visual arts, and also to empower artists, our community-based artists, and by building networks within the art community and among ourselves so that we know who we are and how we can reach each other, and also to provide support, act as mentors, provide resources, information for all of our community-based artists. And we chose East Cleveland as a base to start because we see all kinds of possibilities right here in East Cleveland. Our name, the Anansi Artists Alliance, is based on an old West African myth. The Anansi the Spider-Man was a mythological character from over 1,000 years ago. And Anansi the Spider-Man was given the task of being the keeper of stories about life's lessons. We as artists are divine storytellers. We consider ourselves divine storytellers. Our mission is to use art as a tool to teach, to share our stories about important life lessons, and have a positive social impact on our community. Each of us as an artist has a different story to tell, but we are supporting each other in telling those life lessons and the interpretation of those lessons that we have perceived and are able to express through our art. Tonight, our featured artist is Harold, also known as Chief Hubbard. Chief is a self-taught artist, and he works in several different mediums. He's a freelance and also a graphic artist, and his work has been shown in a number of different venues in the Cleveland area. But the more important thing is the way that Chief used art as a springboard to change his whole life and to really make a difference for himself, using art as a springboard. And I think that's a lesson for all of us. Tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the other Anansi artists who are here. First of all, Damian Ware. Damian is a poet, and he is also the vice president of the Anansi Artists Alliance. Damian, are you here? He was here a minute ago. Okay, Damian Ware, he's our vice president and a poet. And we'll hear from him a little later on. Okay. I'd also like to introduce Rodney Carpenter. Rodney is an artist and a teacher, and he's our chief executive officer. Alan Seifela. Alan is a playwright, a lover of the arts, and he's our treasurer. Denise Moore. Denise is a visual artist, and she is also one of our financial officers. Raheem Bassett. Raheem, I think Raheem is here. He's outside. You saw him at the table out there. Raheem is a social activist and also an entrepreneur, and he's also one of our financial officers. Chief Hubbard. Chief, as I said, is our featured officer today, our featured artist today. He's a visual artist, and he is also our secretary. India Jones. I don't know if India is here tonight, but India is a visual artist, and she is our assistant secretary. Okay, we also have Charles, or Mississippi, Charles Bevel. I don't know if he's here tonight. Charles is one of our advisors. He is also a performing artist. He directed the play that is currently appearing at the Caramoo, Ain't Nothing But the Blues, and if you haven't seen it, you definitely should make a point of trying to get there to see it before, I think it's in its last few days, and it's definitely worth the energy and the effort to go and see it. It's an outstanding play. Dale Good is one of our visual artists. Jeffrey Young is a performing artist. Be Real is a performing artist. And my name is Bonnie Venable, and I am a visual artist. So Be Real is right over here, and we'll be hearing a little bit more from him later on. I'd like to definitely make a point of thanking, first of all, the East Cleveland Library for being such great partners in putting this together. They've been absolutely awesome. The staff at the East Cleveland Library is a delight to work with. And the friends of the East Cleveland Library are just awesome, awesome people to work with, and it's just been a really, really positive experience. I'd also like to thank Mr. Kapp for helping us with the refreshments, providing the refreshments, and I want to encourage everybody to be sure to go downstairs afterwards and partake of the refreshments. And we also have a very impressive, I think, art display. And we'll also hear some additional poetry and later on this evening. So I do encourage you to stick around and join us afterwards. So thank you very much, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. And now, I have the pleasure of introducing a man who was also set on a particular life path by hearing the music of Miles Davis. Quincy Troupe has been a winning athlete, an acclaimed poet, a respected journalist, editor, and educator. But people often lead the list of his accomplishments with the 1989 book he co-wrote with a certain trumpeter, Miles, the autobiography. There was also the memoir from 2000, Miles and Me. Quincy Troupe has no doubt written more words about Miles Davis than Miles wrote music, and Miles wrote a lot of music. What you'll learn this evening, though, is that besides being a gifted writer and all the other things I mentioned, our special guest is also an amazing storyteller who's here tonight to share a few miles of stories with us. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Quincy Troupe.
Sit, right? I am.
The proceedings with Mr. Troupe reading a few passages from that memoir, Miles and Me.
Thank you. Miles Davis was a great poet on his instrument. His horn could blow warm, round notes that spoke to the deepest human emotions. And it could spit out cracked trills that evoked the angry sounds of bullets firing. Sometimes his trumpet seemed to float over and through remarkably complex rhythms and time signatures with heart-stopping speed and efficiency. His sound could penetrate like a sharp knife. It could also be muted, tender, and low, like a lullaby. But it was always charged with deeply felt emotion. Miles' sound always made us sit up and take notice. It was burnished. It was brooding. It was unforgettable. When you heard Miles on the radio, you knew right away that it was him. You knew it by the sound because no one else ever sounded like that. Like Louis Armstrong's sound, Duke Ellington's, Thelonious Monk's, John Coltrane's. Miles's voice was unmistakably unique. Sometimes when he used the mute, whether on up-tempo tunes or slow ones, we knew we were hearing perfection. When he played muted ballads, it was as if he were tenderly kissing our feelings. Then he would stun us with bright, rapid-fire bursts of feelings, notes that penetrated our spirits. Miles not only soliloquized, he also had a dialoguing style. It was like listening to him having a conversation with himself, with one of his voices imitating a fast-talking, sweet-rapping black street hustler. Even when he was first starting out, Miles' sound and style got your attention immediately because you knew whatever he played, it was going to be unusual. His music was always unusual because that's the way his mind and spirit worked, unusually. Miles Davis was always unusual. He didn't get that way just after he became famous. No, he was special from the beginning. His homeboys back in East St. Louis understood that. They knew he was odd, a little bit different from them and everybody else. They didn't mind his eccentricities. They gave him the space to be different all his life, but only as long as he didn't step over the invisible line that both he and they knew was there. Miles seldom crossed that line to diss them, his homeboys. Because if he had, those homeboys would have made him pay. They would have beat his ass. They weren't no poot butts. Miles knew, too, that they understood him in the way that homeboys always understood the one among them who is different, odd, a genius, someone who sees things they never see, hears sounds they never hear, voices, the screech of car tires, maybe a mockingbird riffing on another bird song, the lonely voice of an old black churchwoman singing plaintively in the dark, dusky glow of a backwater country evening somewhere few come to, save mosquitoes or rats or evil white men dressed in bed sheets carrying guns and flaming crosses. In the night air, the trains never stop whistling past, their wheels humming. The roads are unpaved, empty out there, eerie in the twilight, just before the Haints come out to enter everybody's imagination and shut down those dusty roads. The voice of the old black woman floats above the shadows and trees there, disembodied yet whole. It rises up there and cruises alongside the night birds, circling above some unseen church or log cabin in some out-of-the-way location back in the bushes, hidden. The voice also circled plaintive, haunting, beautiful, achingly real. And if you had the privilege of hearing that voice, perhaps you wouldn't file it away as anything special, something to imitate and relate to for the rest of your life. A reference point for your own life's experiences, making you sensitive, alert, cognizant of other beautiful, necessary things. But that's the way Miles heard it. Perhaps the voice would remind you of a lonely trumpet sound, but maybe you would know that what you heard was special because you couldn't see that old black woman's face. And if you could have met her, you might have been too busy watching her chaw on some snuff to see the wisdom in her old eyes. But Miles did see that face, saw it when he heard her voice. He saw the whole scene, the whole thing, took it all in, knew that it was real and special, and filed it away for use, like on Kind of Blue.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing those words. And a few days ago, you and I shared some words that aired on the radio, and you talked about how your life intersected with Miles over several decades until you finally got to that point where he said, "Ask me a question." And so where I want to start is, what was the first question you asked Miles when you did that first 12-hour interview?
Well, I go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of pick it up. I had been haunting Miles because I heard him when I was 15, and I wanted to meet him, and I wanted to know who he was. I wanted to meet him when I was 15 in St. Louis, and I went to see him, and it's all in this book, so y'all have to get the book because it's too long to talk about. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to know him, and I was at a time a famous basketball player, so I knew he wanted to meet me. You know. But my cousin told me, Miles Davis don't want to meet you, man. He don't want to meet you. He don't care if you all state and all that stuff. You don't care nothing about that, And he didn't want to meet me, And so I didn't try to meet him. You know what I mean? So then after that, I would meet him, and he would diss me a couple of times. He dissed me about 3 or 4 times, like get out the way. You know what I mean? So when I finally got a chance to meet him, when I was writing for Spin magazine, and my editor, said he had picked me to do the interview. I was living in New York at this time, and by this time I had a bad new basketball injury, a bad knee, and I went over. He was living on 79th and 5th Avenue, and I drove over there one Saturday afternoon, beautiful day in New York, summer. I go over there to meet him, and I get in. His valet let me in. I get in. Walk in, had this beautiful apartment overlooking up on the 14th floor. I get in there, and he's in this little alcove painting furiously, paint all in his hair. He had black glasses. It's dark, and he's got glasses on. He's painting and everything, and he makes me stand up. My knee starts to hurt. I'm mad. I start thinking about all the times he didn't diss me. You know what I mean? I'm standing there behind him, and he's not saying nothing to me, nothing. So I'm standing there pissed, you know what I mean? So finally, after about 20 minutes, I thought I was going to collapse because my knee was hurting that bad. He finally said, "Sit down." So I go around the table and sit in front of him, and I'm looking at him. I'm really mad now because my knee is hurting. And he looks at me, and he looked across the table with his glasses. My dreadlocks were thicker then. And he reaches across the table and grabs a handful of my hair and pulls it. How you get your hair like that? So I smacked his hand. Bow! He jumped back and said, "Are you crazy or something?" And the valet behind me, I found out later, had 4 black belts. And Miles put it back on his sunglasses. He looked at me and looked at the guy and said, "Don't kill him yet. I want to see what he got to say, So he said, "What you hit me like that for?" I said, "Miles' space, Quincy's space. Miles' space, Quincy's space. Because I'm here to interview you don't give you a right to invade my space. So then he says, where you from? I said, St. Louis. He said, nah, I know you crazy. And I said to him, not only that, the first band you played in was my cousin's band, Eddie Randall. He said, well, don't sit there like a bump on a log. Ask me a question. So I asked him the question. Tell me about where you get that sound from. Where you get that sound from? How'd you get that sound? So he started talking about this old lady that he heard in the woods. That old lady that he heard that I read to you just now. And that sound, he said, I got that sound. And I could hear it in that old lady's voice. And I could hear it every time I play. I hear that old lady, her voice. See? So that's the first question I asked him.
And over the course of that first interview, you talked for 12 hours, which is mind-blowing. And I wondered, in the space of that time, if it was your questions that were prompting him to tell stories, or if it just seemed like he was waiting for the opportunity to finally tell his story the way he wanted to.
Well, as he started to talk, he would talk, and I would ask him all these. I was prepared. I had listened to everything. I'd been listening to his music all his life. I did everything on him. I knew everything, So I was asking him all these questions. He's like, what? I'd ask him these questions, penetrating questions. And he already knew I wasn't scared of him. See, with Miles, you couldn't be scared of him. He was a human being. He's a human being. That's what he is. He's a genius, great player, great musician, but he's a human being. You know what I mean? And that's where you got to treat people. And if you treated him like that, my wife treated him like that. And he would treat you like that too. So, I would ask him, and so I was asking him all kind of questions, and he was answering them, and he was having fun. You know what I mean? And we were talking about boxing. Then he'd stop and say, look, let me show you a film. And he'd go show me a film of boxer, Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson. And then he'd go play some of his music. And then he'd come back and we'd talk some more. You know what I mean? By that time, the woman who had set up the interview came, and she said, Miles, you said it was going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours. So he looked at her and said, what are you, my mama? You ain't my mama, baby. I can talk long as I want to. She said, oh, excuse me. He said, yeah. And she left. Because that meant, like, split. Because I'm having fun and, like, I'll see you later. You know what I mean? And so that's the way he was. Miles Davis was a person in the moment. He lived in the moment. If he liked you, he liked you. And if he didn't like you, was nothing you could do. You couldn't do nothing to make him like you. If he decided, I don't like you, man or woman, beautiful woman, handsome man, rich, poor, white, black, Chinese, whatever, if he decided he did not like you, that was it for you. He did not want to see you. If he felt like you could not hang with him like that. That's the way he was. He was like that. So he felt he could hang with me for some reason, I started figuring it out later, but I was like, wow, this is out, you know what I mean? And so we were there, and I was asking him a question. He cooked for me. He said, you hungry? I said, can you cook? What? I said, can you cook? Oh, man. And he went in and cooked this food. How'd that taste? I said, fatty middling. Fatty middling? He's crazy. And so, and we'd eat the food and that kind of stuff. So it went on like that, and it kept going, for 12 hours. 10 hours, I called my wife. I called my wife and said, Margaret, I'm still down here talking to Miles Davis because we were going to go to a movie. I said, I'm still down there talking to Miles. You say, you are? I said, I'm still down there talking to him. I was supposed to talk to him for 2 hours, and now it's like 10 hours later. And I'm like, wow. And he's cooking and all that. So she said, can I speak to him? So I said, yeah, Miles, my wife wants to speak to you. Okay. So I give her the phone, and she says, oh, hi, Mr. Davis, I love your music. Call me Miles. He told her, call me Miles. And so, it was like that, And finally, and I'll end this up like this, he says to me about 11 hours into this trip, and I'm saying to myself, this is long. You know what I mean? I got other things I could do. You know what I mean? I ain't got to be down here. I like him, but damn. I could do something else. I could be with my wife, you know. And so finally, he's showing me all kind of stuff, paying new tunes. And I had this is 1985, August, and I had a 1983 Saab car, Swedish car. And he said to me, "You got a car?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You give me a lift downtown?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "All right." So he got a little bag together and everything. Got a little bag together, an overnight bag. And he said, "Let's go." He told his valet, he said, "I'm going down there. Let's go." That's the way he was. "Let's go." And we walked down the street. You know, he had that little limp because he had that car accident, hip replacement, that little bop hip. I said, "Where your car at?" I said, "On Fifth Avenue." Okay. So we get to the car. It was a bronze, like I said, 1983 Saab. I thought it was hip. He said, "What kind of piece of shit is this?" What kind of piece of shit is this? I said, "It's the piece of shit that's going to take you downtown if you shut your mouth. Else you can walk." All right, Quincy. All right. So he gets in the car. He's in the car, sitting there. "You got a tape deck?" I said, "Yeah." "Can I play some music, Quincy? Can I play my new album for you, Quincy?" I said, "Yeah, man, play something. If it's good." "What?" I said, "If it's good, put it in the tape deck." So he put it in. "Hey, you like that?" I said, "That ain't hitting it." He said, "What? It ain't hitting it?" I said, "No, that ain't hitting it." Oh, shit. He said, then he pushed it in and went to the next one. He said, "Well, what about that one?" I said, "That's Fatty Miller, and that's okay." He's looking like, and he pushed it, and I said, "Now that's bad. That's really good. That's good there." "Oh yeah, you like that, huh?" And that's the way it was all the way downtown. And I said, "Oh, I like that." And that turned into the Tutu album. See, he told me later, "I'm gonna take that other stuff off." I said, "Cause I didn't like it?" "No, not cause you didn't like it, cause it didn't work." He wasn't gonna give me nothing like that, no. So he says, so we get downtown and we go downtown and we get to, because I'm telling you these things because a lot of people don't know this kind of side of Miles. He was a very shy guy, very shy, very beautiful guy, and if he liked you, like I said, he was in your corner, and very generous spirit, beautiful. I loved him to be around him. Mercurial personality, mercurial. You'd be one day, he'd be 1 minute he's like real nice, and next one he's kind of almost cursing you out. So you had to respond to him. "Oh, shut up, man!" Like shut up. Like one day he told me, and then I'll get back to the end of this. Told me one day, "Quincy, we were arguing about something." He said, "I hit you in your mouth." I said, "Miles, you looked at yourself recently?" He said, "What?" I said, "You 5'9", 5'8", and you weigh about 150 pounds?" I said, "I'm 6'2", I weigh 250. I'll hurt you." I said, "Because I ain't going to take no whooping now, okay? I'm not taking no whooping. I'll hurt you." And I said, "You know what? I'll aim at your mouth. You'll never play again. You hit me." He said, "Oh, man, come on, man." But, he was like that. So when I didn't know that right then, but when we got downtown, he says to me, "Yeah, thanks, man." He said, "Look, I enjoyed that today, man." I said, "Oh, good." He said, "If you want something else," he wrote down all his numbers, and he gave them to me. "Call me up on the phone." He said, then he turned, he was finna walk in this building. He said, "And don't give that to nobody, that numbers." So I said, "Oh, what you think I'm gonna do? Walk down Fifth Avenue and say, 'Yo, Miles Davis' number. Anybody want Miles' number, Miles Davis' number? Anybody want it?'" He just looked at me like, "Oh, man." He just walked in the building. So I called him 2 days later, and I went down. He said, "Yeah, come by." And I went down. I did another 10, 11 hours. So I knew something was happening. I didn't know exactly what it was. I didn't know exactly what it was.
But you said that as you talked more, you began to figure it out. So what was it, do you think, that Miles responded to? Was it the fact that you wouldn't take any stuff from him, just like he wouldn't take stuff from anybody else? Or was it the St. Louis connection or something else?
Good. He told somebody later, he said, What was it about Quincy Troupe? See, a lot of the jazz writers hated me because they wanted to do that book. They wanted to do his book. They really wanted to do his book. So they asked him, what was it about Quincy Troupe that you liked? He said, he was black. He was from St. Louis. He could finish my sentences. He understood me. He knew my music in and out. He had researched me. And I liked him. I just liked him. I felt comfortable with him, comfortable with him. We could joke and all of that and talk stuff. You know what I mean? He was like one of the, like a musician. You know what I mean? He was like a musician. He could kind of hang, and that's what it was. So he felt he could tell me anything. He felt he could trust me. He felt that, same way he felt about my wife. He felt that I would tell him the truth about stuff. If I didn't like it, I was going to tell him I didn't like it. If I did like it, I was going to tell him I liked it. So he was like that. He liked honesty. He liked honesty. He liked it if you could say, okay, I don't like that, or if I like that, and tell him why you liked it. So that was why he trusted me in a lot of ways, and why he opened up to me eventually. I remember one time when I was after that article came out, Miles was like this. Miles went away. I did the piece. I was supposed to do 2,500 words. Well, Alan knows about that, 2,500 words. But now I got, 12 hours worth, 10 hours worth of tape. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to do 2,500 words. I couldn't do 2,500 words. So I just let it rip. I just wrote this thing. It turned into 50 pages. 50 pages on him. And I must say this part right here. And I wrote it like that. First, I didn't write it like that. I wrote it another way. I was trying to psychoanalyze Miles at first. I'll be truthful. I was trying to psychoanalyze him because, he's so complex. I'm trying to psychoanalyze him. So when I got through with the piece, I came home to my wife. We live close to Central Park in Harlem. And I told my wife it was another nice day. I come home. I said to my wife, Margaret, I said, I'm going to go walking in the park. Could you read this and tell me what you think? I thought she could, hey, this is genius. I'm thinking, this is myself. This is genius. I go walking in the park, give her 3 hours, because this goes so complex, it's going to take her that long, to deal with it. So I come back about 3.5 hours later, and she's sitting up there and cooking and talking. I said, well, what you think about the piece? She said, it's a piece of shit. I said, a what? She says, a piece of shit. She said, nobody want to hear you psychoanalyzing Miles Davis. So we didn't speak for 3 days. We didn't speak for 3 days. We were walking around the house like that. I didn't see nothing to her. That's why you're supposed to have a big apartment. So you go over there and I go over here. You know what I mean? And I walk around there, and I was pissed, boy. Then I looked at it, and she was right. She was absolutely right. Nobody want to hear me. So I wrote it. She said, let Miles Davis speak. You got all that, got him talking about everything. So I did. I let him talk and speak in him. And the piece all the way through was like that. And I turned it in. That was the first 2-part piece Spin Magazine ever did. They did it in 2 parts. I was mad because they put Bruce Springsteen on the cover one and Bob Dylan on another. And I went down and said, man, I know y'all like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan, but Miles Davis is an absolute genius. How come he couldn't be on the cover? You know what I mean? They go, on one of the covers at least. So anyway, he came back. He went away and came back in January. That piece came out November, December. And when he came back in January, the phone rang. I picked up the phone. And this is quintessential Miles Davis here. I pick up the phone. Quincy. I said, yeah. Man, that's the baddest piece ever written on me. Boom. And he hung up the phone. That's all he said. I went, oh, that was Miles Davis. That was Miles Davis. What? The phone. He hung up the phone. and that's what he said. He'd always cut it like that.
I like that. And when you describe it like that, it reminds me of some of the ways that he played. He'd play the notes he needed, and then he'd step back and say, okay, I gave you enough. But it also made me think about the fact that you first got entry to his music by listening to the song Donna in late 40s, but his music changed and evolved so much over time. And I wanted to have you talk about what he said about what spurred him to keep evolving, to keep shifting, to keep just not letting anyone get a handle on who is Miles Davis musically.
Well, Miles used to talk in images. He used to talk in images. I remember I asked him that. About about change. And he said, you ever listen to you remember how the car crashes used to sound? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know when they had them metal cars and everything? He said when the cars, a big crash and everything, it was like, it was metal. And it'd be crashing, metal flying everywhere. He said, now they got this composite and, hard plastic and little metal and everything. It go like this when the car hit it, it go, poof. He said, that's progress. Everything changes. Sound changes. Everything changes. He said, so the way it sounds today is not going to sound like that tomorrow. And how it sounded yesterday, it's not going to sound like it, next year. So my sound, not my sound so much, but the way I play, the style I play, because of the fact everything changes. Music changes. You play long notes, now you're playing short notes. You're playing long notes, you're playing medium notes. He said you can't play long notes when people playing all this stuff, busy stuff underneath. Can't do it. He said, so you got to play something else. He said, so, and that's the way I am. I'm always trying to move forward. I'm always changing. That's the way my mind works. I don't hear things the same all the time. I hear differently. He said, people get mad, but that's tough. He said, somebody told me something. He said, I used to love your music. I don't listen to it no more. He said, you old man. Old people don't buy no music no way. He said, they don't buy no music. Young people buy music. Now, he said, they don't buy it because you don't hear it. You don't hear it. I had a lot of my friends say, I can't listen to Miles after Bitches Brew. I can't go there. And on the corner, I was through. I was through. And he said, yeah, so what? So what? If you can't listen to it, cool. He said, them young people can. Because Miles was a portal on the musical highway, the musical internet, the highway. And you could enter him. People came into Miles on the corner, young people. Some people came on Doo-Bop, and they went back and listened to Kind of Blue, and they came forward. They also went and listened to Duke Ellington, and they came forward. Some people came in at Kind of Blue, and they stayed there, and some people came in later music, fusion. And so he got all those different kinds of music. And like he said, everything changes. Everything changes. The world changes. We're in a crazy time now. What's this music going to reflect of this time? Of this time we living in now. So you got to think of it like that. So that's the way he was. He was a sponge. He was a sponge that soaked up everything. Most people don't soak up everything. They're content to be where they are and play that, and they safe there. Well, he wasn't like that. He was not like that. He was always moving, always.
It also makes me think of that image of him painting when you went to visit him for that first interview. What were his paintings like?
At first, his paintings were stick figures. I remember one time he told my wife Margaret, he was down the floor, Margaret. Now, my wife used to own a art gallery, big art gallery in California. And she had knew all these artists, and we knew all these artists. And we go by their studios all the time, great painters. I mean, really great painters, that are really famous now. And we go by their studios. And so we knew we were in with the artists, painters. So he was telling them, hey, Margaret, I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying to do this with this. And she said, oh, Miles, shut up. I know about paintings, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I know what you do, So Miles used to draw stick figures at first. And he said, what you think about that, Quincy? I said, it's a stick figure. It's a stick figure, man. It's a stick figure. You know what I mean? I mean, do you know this painter? Who? Do you know about this painter? No. I said, well, then you should learn about that painter. You know, but these here things you're doing now, this is stick figures. Okay, man. All right. You know what I mean? That's a stick figure. So he got better and better because the woman he was going with was a real painter. And she kept getting better and better and better. And he really started liking certain kinds of people. He started changing again. You know, again, it was stick figures. And then he started doing more, getting more into color. And he started getting more serious. He worked hard at it. He really worked. First, he started painting and drawing because he wanted to stop smoking, because he was a smoker. So he figured out that he needed something in his hand. He needed something in his hand. He used to have cigarettes. So instead of a cigarette, he got a pencil. So he started having a pencil in his hand, drawing all. That's why he did the stick figures. He's drawing all the time because he said, because I didn't want no cigarette in my hand. So I was trying to fight against having cigarettes, so I got a pencil. And he had a pencil all the time. He always had a pencil. You know, he always had a pencil in his hand. And first it was therapeutic. It was for him, it was medicinal in a way, to get off the smoking, you know, so he could get away from it. And then he really got into it. He really got into it. He was a very focused person. He was beautiful. He swam every morning. He stopped drinking. A lot of people don't know that. The last 13 years of his life, he didn't drink nothing. He didn't use no drugs. He went swimming every morning. He went swimming every morning, every morning. And he went swimming every morning. And he took care of himself. You know, he took care of himself. You know, Miles's family had these small veins, and they all had strokes. All of them. His mother, father, his brothers, all of them. They all died. 65. Nobody lived longer than that. So a lot of people thought that it was the drugs and all that. It wasn't the drugs. It was hereditary. It was hereditary. And that's why he always thought about death, because he knew it was coming. He thought it was coming. He knew it was coming. So he was in a hurry. He was in a hurry. He was in a hurry. And I'd go by there and he'd have these conversations with, he told me he was having a conversation with Coltrane. I was talking to Train today, Quincy. I had a good conversation with Train and Bird. Then I was talking to my dad today. And they were all dead, you know. And he was talking about, I was talking to Clifford Brown, you know, talking to him today, man. Great conversation. And we were talking about we ought to play together sometime. And, I would just sit there and listen. Because I knew what he was talking about. He was like, you know, and he liked kids. Like, he would play for my son. A lot of people didn't know that. He used to play for my son. My son, when he was little, he was 3 or 4. And I'd take my son by there. He'd say to me, I said one day, Miles, my son Porter recognized you, because he had been looking. I was writing the book. He was looking at the pictures all the time. That's Miles Davis. That's Miles Davis. Miles Davis. Because I had them all on the floor, all the pictures and the books and everything. So he said, your son, no, he recognizes me. I said, yeah. So he kept telling me to bring him down there. Bring him down here. I want to see if you're lying. I said, why should I lie about my son recognizing you, man? Just bring him down here, man. You know what I mean? So one day I was telling him I was in the car. He said, bring him down with you. So I brought him, and don't tell him you come into my house. So I didn't. So I come down to his house, Porter in tow, brought him upstairs. Porter sees him across the living room, starts running, talking about, Miles Davis, little short legs, running up to Miles and jumped on him. Oh, Miles Davis. And Miles was looking at him like, yeah. And so then he would play trumpet for Porter. He would get Porter there. He said, play for him, Miles. And Miles, he'd play trumpet for him. About 15 minutes. He played some beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. And every time I'd bring him there, I started bringing him, he'd play something for Porter. So finally, he said to me one day, man, I can't play something for Porter every time he come here, man. I'm busy, man. So I brought him down there one time, and Porter said, where's the trumpet? So he started hiding the trumpet. So Porter found it. He found the trumpet. He hid it behind a chair, and he found it. And he came out there, and he made him play. He played it again. So the next time, he hit the trumpet way up someplace. And so when Porter came by, that's the next time, he said, Miles, where the trumpet? Where the trumpet? He said, I left it in Los Angeles. I left it in Los. So Porter started crying, broke down, started crying. He said, Porter, I get a lot of money to play this trumpet, man. I can't play it for you every time I see you, okay? I left it in L.A. I left it in Los Angeles. Stop crying. Which meant it was over. His private concerts were over with.
And did Porter stop crying?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Because when Miles says it, I think we got about 5 more minutes before I want
Whatever.
to get the audience to ask some
Okay.
questions. But Miles had this image of the hard man who would shut people out. And you talk about his shyness. I wonder if you saw him in moments of vulnerability and or fear. Did Miles fear things?
He didn't so much fear things, but I saw him, he was lonely. He was lonely. I remember one time when Tutu came out, they gave a record company party for him downtown. And everybody, all these stars came, actors, big actors, I mean, not just black actors, white actors, musicians, everybody came. It was packed. And Spike Lee did the video. And so we were there. Mark and I came there. So after a while, I don't like those kind of parties, you know, where everybody's self-important, you know, I'm important, you know. And so you got to deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and so after a certain point, my wife and I said, okay, I'd experienced that kind of stuff before. So we said, let's go. And so we went up to Miles and said, hey, Miles, look here, man, we leaving. You leaving? What? You don't like it? I said, it's cool, but we leaving, man. We going. And he said, why? I said, because it's boring. You know, this is boring, you know. He said, oh. And he looked around at all the people there who were there to cheer. And he said, wait a minute. And he went in and told Walter Yetnikoff, who was over Columbia Sony Records. He told me, and he had a limo waiting for him. He had a limo out there waiting for him. He said, let's go. Let's go. I said, oh, you go, what? He said, let's go. He said, we're going in your car. And we went in our car uptown, and he wanted us to come upstairs so bad because he used to model his clothes for us. You know, go around, because, you know, I mean, he'd model his clothes. He gave Margaret some suits. He said, you too big. I ain't got nothing to fit your ass. So he gave it to Margaret. And, but I said, I ain't coming upstairs, man. I got to get up. You know, I got to get up. So Miles was like that. He was lonely. But he was also, I want to get in one other point here. Miles was an unreconstructed black man, an unreconstructed person, human being. And what I mean by that is that he wasn't put together by somebody else. He didn't dance to nobody's drummer. Nobody's drummer. You know, he danced his own tune. He took his own way, whether you liked it or not. Whether you liked it or not. And I think we need more people like that. I mean, you know, just think about it. You know, Malcolm X, when Malcolm X did what he did, a lot of black folks didn't support him. If you think back, if you're old as I am, you think about a lot of black people ran away from him because he was like saying, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. I'm not doing it. And it was a little bit too radical for us. You see what I'm saying? So Miles is like that. I didn't like, and I want to end by saying there were certain things I didn't like about Miles. You know, I want to be honest. You know, I didn't like the way he treated women. I told him to his face, though. I told him to his face, I don't like the way you treat women. I don't like the way you treat women. I don't like the way you talk about women. You know, and he said, well, you know, yeah, but I came up at a certain time. I said, well, stop. You know, like you told Coltrane to take the horn out of his mouth. Because Coltrane said he liked what he was playing. He said, dude, playing too much, Train. Take the horn out of your mouth. Stop. It can't play by itself. Horn can't play by itself. You know, well, stop. Just stop. That was my whole thing. Just stop it. You know what I mean? You can do that. You can do that, you know. Just like you stop shooting drugs, just like you stop drinking, just like you stop this other stuff, you can stop. You know, you can stop. You can be another person. You can reinvent yourself in a way, in that light, you know. So I thought in the end, Miles was a special person that you ain't gonna see come this way for a long time, if ever. It might be somebody else who's great. Now, I'm not saying that, but you won't see a person like that come, because people are made by the times they come from. You know, they come from. Musicians and artists especially. You know, they come out of a certain kind of time and milieu, all of that. And so he was that special artist that we had. He gave us a gift of the music. Gave us a gift of the music, and will be around forever. As long as there's music. As long as there's music, we'll listen to Miles. We'll listen to Miles's music or someone coming out of that.
And now we want to open the floor to questions and hands right there in the center.
I wanted to know what it was like for Miles to be contemporaries with Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, Tony Williams, John McLaughlin. Like, what all stories did he have about all these people that he played with and shared space with?
Oh yeah, but this book, Miles, the autobiography. Have you read this? Some of it. Well, you should ask me what you want. You should ask. He got all kind of stories about them. I don't know specifically what you want to know. See, I'm just being honest, because there was all kind of stories. I mean, like Bird. There were stories about Bird. As great a musician Bird was, I mean, he would,
Backseat with the chicken.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, that's really, really funny. That's a funny story in that book. But I mean, going through Central Park, going down through Central Park. But he had some outrageous stories about Bird. They're all true, because a lot of musicians had stories about Bird that I used to hear. I mean, because I'm from St. Louis, people used to tell stories about Bird. He was just outrageous, but he was a great musician, you know what I mean? John McLaughlin, great musician, different, British. John Coltrane, Miles Davis loved John Coltrane. I mean, he loved John Coltrane. He thought John Coltrane played himself in a corner, though. He thought he played himself in the corner and couldn't get out. Now that's Miles's opinion. I love John Coltrane. I love John Coltrane. But Miles had more different ways to approach the music, in a way. And the drummer, Tony Williams. He loved Tony Williams. He just loved Tony Williams. He did. He learned a lot from Tony, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter. All that whole second group. He learned a lot from them. He learned a lot from them. In that sense, he had been the teacher of most people, Miles had. And then when he got in that group, they taught him at first. Then at the end, he absorbed, because I told you, Miles Davis was a gigantic sponge. And once he got what you were talking about, what people was telling him, then he became the teacher again with them. Because they told me this. Not Wayne, not Tony Williams, but Herbie Hancock told me that, and Wayne Shorter told me that. All of a sudden, he switched roles on him. After he had absorbed all that stuff, he had it, He was a quick read and like that. So I think that all of those people, to this day, who are alive, the ones that are alive, love Miles Davis, not only as a great, great, great imaginative, creative artist, trumpet player, but artist, but also they loved his example of being an artist, of changing and being constantly innovative, you have to think about it in a way. So they all love him, they really do. I didn't find anybody that didn't love Miles Davis as a musician. You know what I'm saying? I didn't find anyone. Might be mad with him about certain things, but they did not. They all loved him, and that's kind of remarkable. you know, and they miss him to this day, like I do. I remember one time getting together with Santana, when I met Santana, and all we did was tell Miles Davis stories. It was weird, you know what I mean? We told Miles Davis stories in the voice too. Everybody does it in the voice, you know. Everybody be trying to do it like he talk like that. And so so it's fabulous. It is just a fabulous, you know, it's a fabulous honor. It was a privilege for me that he picked me to write that book. I felt honored. To this day, I feel honored that he picked me to write the book. That's what I was going to say. A lot of the people, the jazz critics, got mad. They wanted to be picked. And they would come up and talk about me like a dog. And see, since I had changed, I didn't want to smack them. You know, I don't know why you talking about me like this, man. You know, I said, you ought to be, your anger is misplaced. You ought to go get mad with Miles. He picked me. I didn't pick myself, you know. So, yeah.
Did Porter ever learn to play the trumpet?
My son? Yeah. No, he's a professional basketball player in Romania now. He loved Miles Davis, though.
Yes. But he never learned to play an instrument?
No, he learned to play basketball. Well, yeah, but he might probably be better now. He's 6'6". Oh, it's off. It's off, right? It's off. Battery Can you hear me? That was a quick move, improvisation.
Oh, thank you. Hi.
Did we get him? Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you.
I was going to say you and then the gentleman right here. Hi. I had the privilege of singing in the Miles Davis Jazz Festival in New York City at 106th and Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And he seemed to me that he changed at the time when Cicely Tyson came into his life. Did you see it changing?
You want me to start talking about Cicely?
You mentioned his attitude towards women.
Well, Cicely.
It seemed to me that in that time I loved him and studied him, but it seemed like he softened at that time that she came into his life.
Yeah. Cicely Tyson saved Miles Davis' life in a way. She did. She got him eating health foods and stuff like that. She changed his diet. But the problem with Cicely and Miles, and I'll be frank, is that Miles always felt towards Cicely like she was his friend, a good friend, not his lover. He didn't want to be with her as a wife, like I want to be with my wife, like that. You know, we've been together 30-some years, you know, I'm still happy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why she's crazy. No, you know, but we be happy. And you know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? It's that feeling. And he felt towards her like a good friend. She was his good friend. But she wanted to be married. And I'll say this publicly. He told me this. He wanted to be married. She wanted to be married. He wanted to be her friend. So for one of the first times in his life, he told me, I made a mistake by going against what I thought I should do because I didn't want to be cold-blooded to her, and I married her. I should have just stayed her friend, but he was afraid she wouldn't speak to him. You know what I mean? So he married her, and he felt that was a mistake because it ruined the friendship. It ruined the friendship. They had a real deep friendship. So he did soften and during that time, but he felt she got angry with him because he couldn't just adapt and be the husband, you know, and he just wanted to be her friend, like he's told me. He said, you know, Leontine Price and I are real tight friends. And he just went down to Chaka Khan, friends. We just tight. You know, Shirley Horn, they were just tight. friends. They didn't make the mistake. And women who used to come up to me and say, I want to meet Miles Davis. I said, no, you don't. No, you do not want to meet Miles Davis. I'm not going to introduce you to my friends. I said, I'm not introducing you to Miles Davis, but I want to meet him. I said, that's tough. You meet him on your own. I'm not going to introduce you to him. I tell him, I'm not introducing you. Because Miles didn't know how to treat women in that way, you know? Because he was always into his music. You see what I'm saying? He's in the music, and then he thought you would be, you know, if you taking up his time. That's where he was. He couldn't make that adjustment, you know? And some people are like that. You know, sometimes it's best to be friends with him or be his girlfriend and come when he wants you to, you know, when y'all want to be together, but not be married. You see? That was the best. I thought that was the best way for somebody. That's my opinion. But people want to be up in his life all the time. And he's like, get out. Let's leave. Because he want to play, or he want to paint, or he want to do something else. You know, he don't want to look at you. You see what I'm saying? I know that's a little hard for a fine woman, beautiful woman. You don't want to look at me. Oh, Lord. Like handsome men.
Just jump right in.
Handsome men think they supposed to get looked at all the time by women. Yes.
Question here, right here, over here.
Yep.
Over here.
No, he was first.
I was going to ask, did he ever get married? No. But you already answered that one. Did he have children?
Yeah, he married Cecily.
I said, did he have children?
Oh, yeah, he got children. Oh, yeah, he got children. He got children. He's got children.
Are you familiar with his children?
I know his children, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know his children. But the love of his life was Francis Davis, who was the dancer. He told me, I made a mistake, and I made a mistake with Francis. I should have got off dope, drugs, everything, because he just loved Francis Davis. And but he was jealous, so jealous of her, jealous. Miles could be very jealous too, but he was real jealous of her, so that tore that whole relationship apart. She never got married again either, but he always thought about her. And he told me, there was the love of my life was Francis Davis. I mean, that's how close we were. He told me that. And, yeah. He regretted that they broke up. He regretted it, really, that he treated her badly. He tried, but, I guess he was afraid. He was afraid. He was kind of afraid. He was afraid, because, he was just afraid, I think, after a while. And she was scared too, because he hit her a couple of times and all that, chased her. I mean, it was insane. You know what I mean? I said, man, what was wrong with you, man, chasing that beautiful woman like that? And you loved her that much. Drugs drove me to do everything like that. And then jealousy. That cocaine and everything. I was bouncing off the ceiling. You know what I mean? And then he stopped. Finally, he still stopped. But it was the drugs and the jealousy and staying up and drinking and all of that, and he just couldn't handle it until he stopped totally. Where he stopped and became another person. I knew him when he was that other person. The last 13 years of his life, when he wasn't drinking, when he was not using no drugs. I remember I first go by his house and he had a vial of cocaine. And he says to me, in Malibu, he had this house right on the beach. Miles was crazy. He was funny. He went out there one day because he lived right on the beach. He bought the lot on that side and the lot on this side. So couldn't nobody build nothing on that side and on that side. So he go out there one day and he saw this couple laying on a blanket. White couple laying on the blanket on the beach in front of his pad on the beach. And he walked up to him. He said, come on, Quincy. Because he was a mischievous guy. He went up to him. They were laying there kissing and rolling on the thing. And he walked up to him and said, what y'all doing on my beach? What y'all doing on my beach? Laying up there doing. They went, And he went, he said, go ahead on. Go ahead on. Keep on doing what y'all doing. He walked away, and they were like looking, and the woman said, that's Miles Davis. But he was a mischievous guy like that. He was funny. He was funny. He was hilarious to me, like it cracked me up, but yeah.
Mr. Troupe, I want to thank you for being here, and we truly appreciate your experience right here to your right here.
I got you.
Thank you. We will cherish this for sure. Two questions.
Two.
What direction you think Miles' music would be in 2014, and what was Miles' take on money?
On money? Oh, he liked money. I'll take that first. Miles made a lot of money. He made a lot of money, and so he liked to live well. He had 2 Ferraris. Two. And he had 2 Ferraris, had a beautiful house on the beach in Malibu, had a beautiful apartment in New York. He made a lot of money. He made sure they paid him. He lost his voice because of the fact the guy wanted him to play three gigs, and he said, I'm playing 2. You're going to pay me for the 2, and you're going to pay me good like that. And the guy said, well, I really have to do 3. He said, I'm not doing 3. Shut up. And, and he finally, and the guy was chasing, and he lost his voice because he had a surgery, and he chasing the guy down Broadway, cursing him out. Because the guy wouldn't do, he was the one that changed the whole thing to two sets a night. Miles did that. He did that. So he liked money. And what he would be doing in 2014, I don't know. He'd be how old now? 2014? Wow. He'd be old. That's one thing, And but I'll tell you where he was going when he died. I had turned him on to Kassav from the West Indies, and he was starting to listen to a lot of African music and Brazilian music. He was listening to a lot of Guadeloupean music from Martinique and Guadeloupe, the group Kassav. Some of the African music where, I'm sure he would have been listening to Youssou N'Dour and those kind of bands that they got. They got great bands in Africa now. Great bands in Senegal and Zaire. I mean, incredible bands. And he was starting to listen to that and a lot of the Brazilian bands. So I knew he wanted to incorporate that in it, just as he wanted to incorporate some of the rap music rhythms into his music. He was trying to do that. He was trying to do that with doo-bop, see? So I know that. I can't go any further than that.
One more, and then we'll take a brief intermission.
Yes, of all the music that Miles performed, what album do you think he most was impressed with?
Miles? Miles didn't listen to none of his old albums. He didn't listen to none of his old music. I'll tell you that right now. He never did. He did not listen to his old music. Did not. He didn't listen to it. I mean, he was interested in going forward. He was not interested. He did one time, and one time I go over his house. Quincy Jones had been calling him on the phone, and I was there a lot of times, and I knew Quincy was doing it because I knew Quincy too, know him now. But he called Miles all the time trying to get him to do the Gil Evans music. And Gil Evans was trying to get him to do that music. That old big band music and all that. And he said, man, I ain't doing that old shit. So I'd rather be dead than do that old shit. I ain't listening to none of that. I ain't going back to none of that stuff. That ain't me saying shit. That's him. I'm giving you his voice. I'm entering his persona, So don't say, Quincy Troupe was up there cursing all night long. Don't say that. Don't go away saying that. This is Miles Davis talking. When Quincy come up here calling me with that shit, talking about do this old shit, I'm not doing it. That shit is old. I ain't doing none of that shit. I'd rather be dead. I said, okay, man. And he would say that all rant and rave after Quincy got off. That was Quincy, man, trying to get me to do that shit, man. I ain't. So one day after he'd moved, I go by his house, right? This is the year he died. Now, I go by his house, apartment, and he told me to bring some of my poetry by there, record of my poetry and this other stuff. Might put it on one of my records. I said, okay. So I'll take it by there. And he's packing to go someplace. I said, oh, you going, huh? He said, yeah, I'm going to Montreux. I said, oh, yeah, what you going over there to do? He said, we're going to go over there and Wallace Roney's going to play and we're going to do some of Gil's old music and Quincy going to conduct the band. So I look at him and I say to him, damn, you must be getting ready to die. And he looked at me. I never saw him that angry before. He looked at me and said, what? You don't know about none of this shit? Get out of my apartment. Get out. Just get the fuck out. Get out. So I started backing up because I didn't want him to hit me in the back of the head. Like walk out that way to hit me in the back because he could get so angry he might hit me, and I wasn't going to take no hitting in the back of the head, So I backed out the door. I said, calm down, man. Calm down, man. What is it? Man, shut up. You don't know nothing. And I backed out of the door. The reason I said that because he said he'd rather die than play that old stuff. So I backed. He slammed the door. The door almost came off his hinges. So finally, he goes over there and plays. But Miles's temper went like that. He didn't hold grudges. So when I came back, we were talking on the phone. On the phone. This was about a week before he died. I was right in residence at the Loft in Minneapolis. And I said to him, we were on the phone talking. I said, man, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I want to apologize, man. I said that you must have been, you must gonna die, man. When I said, he said, oh, man, forget about that, man. Forget about that stuff. I did say it. I did say that. I did say I'd rather die than play that old. He said, so forget about it, man. It ain't nothing. So he said, just bring your po ass up here and get some of these paintings that I got. I said, man, $75,000. He said, I'll give you two. He said, with your po self, I said, man, he said, Quincy Jones didn't buy all my stuff. I said, man, they rich, man. I'm not rich like them. They millionaires, man. $75,000 for a painting, I can't. So he had that stroke that weekend. So when I got off the plane to come back, Margaret told me, my wife told me, Miles had a stroke. I said, what? She said he had a stroke and they don't think he's gonna make it. I went back. We were living in La Jolla, San Diego, and I said, what? She says, and here's his sister's number. She said, call her if you want to come up and see him. So I called her sister Dorothy, and she said, oh, it looks bad, Quincy. It looks bad. He's staying there. I said, well, tell me what's happening. Why did? He said, well, he's laying there. He's all, hooked up to all kind of, he had a stroke and he's just, he's paralyzed on one side and all that. I said, oh, wow. She said, you want to come up and see him? I said, oh, no. I said, I'd rather remember him like the conversation, because we had a long couple of conversations in Minneapolis. I don't want to see him like that. I really do not want to, because that memory will stay in my mind forever, I didn't want to see that. I just didn't want to see it. And so it was really troubling for me, but that was it. And his family never lived long. His family, they all had strokes,
Said earlier, it's still alive in the music. And I thank you so much for channeling.
Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we're going to take a brief intermission now and get ready to hear some fabulous music from the Kenny Davis Quartet. And hope you will enjoy and stick around.
May I have your attention? Thank you very much. You're in for a treat in just a couple of seconds. Behind me is a man I've been listening to as long as I've been listening to jazz. Kenny Davis has been a sought-after player and educator for decades. He also has strong ties to the Motown sound that I used to love from his years of playing in the house band at Leo's Casino when all the Motor City stars came through Cleveland. But his heart and his horn have always been hooked on jazz, and it is my privilege to bring Kenny Davis and his quartet to the stage. Please welcome Jackie Warren on keyboards. On bass is Kurt Felgemacher. On drums, Ron Godale. And the trumpeter is Mr. Kenny Davis.
Before we leave, I want to play one more for you. Jackie Warren on piano. Chris Sutherland on bass. Monto Dale on drums.
My name's Kenny Davis. Thank you.
saw everyone in this audience enjoying themselves. Let's give them one more round of applause. Chop, chop, get up. Food is in the basement. We're waiting on you. Thank you for coming out.